These are some of the things that we found. You remember I talked about we put the system in and what did we learn? We found all these headaches that we weren't expecting to see. Pallets that overhang. They're not supposed to have any overhang on our pallets. Oh, guess what? You got overhang. We have pallets that were skewed. They're not supposed to be skewed. The things that we couldn't take into account, we now take into account with sensors that we just didn't have in the past. We had these sensors, bin occupied sensors, and of course load flaps and load present sensors. But we were actually using devices that weren't as capable as what we use now. We actually use laser sensors now to determine distances to pallets, offsets of pallets. You'll see that there's a sensor here and a sensor here. So we can actually tell as we go into the rack if that thing is pushed back a little bit, if it's a little too far out, and then we can adjust accordingly as we go to pick up. The last thing in the world you want, or I want, is when I go to a position to pick a pallet up and I don't get a load flap, that I just sit there and stop. Doesn't make an awful lot of sense. So we use these sensors to be able to determine where to go, how far to go, make sure that we're going to pick these pallets up, because these systems are designed to run lights out. Wouldn't be much good if you had to have somebody there running the machines. So they're designed to run completely lights out. What else did we learn? Talked about the racking wasn't straight, and then there were, people hit rack. We all know that. So from time to time, you have damage. But what we found with the new systems that we're putting in is, boy, wouldn't it be smart if we actually surveyed these rack locations with like a physical survey up front? So rather than going in and measuring each and every location, which is what we did before, we actually get a survey crew out, and we actually survey those locations a lot quicker. We can do it almost automatic. You can almost do it automatically. We survey it, then we can check the locations out in a manner that, again, we didn't have available before. A little piece of history for you. The systems that you're going to see, this system here says AGV products on it. That's where I came from. So we are now HK Systems. One of the benefits that we have now is because, for lack of a better term, this is an ASRS. HK Systems has more ASRS out there than anybody that I know. It's probably an overstatement. But anyway, there are tons of them out there, and one of the things that we learned from them is that there are ways to check these locations automatically. We had no idea. I mean, there must have been something. We probably could have wrote a routine to do it, to check each one without actually physically walking out. HK has got a program. Can you believe this? They've got a program that goes out and checks the locations, determines if they're off, and then feeds a feedback loop to tell us how far they're off. Can you believe that? We used to have to do that all by hand. Okay, so what does that mean? Faster install, faster return on investment. Okay, we're all getting there. I'm belaboring it a little bit. The other thing, the floors, we can now profile the floors. Now, one more note. This is not my slide, but somehow one of my friends decided that we should put this in. But it is a good idea, but it probably should be near the end. If you're thinking about this from a technology comparison, we're talking about technology, of course. This is the way that typically people look at this, and you want somebody to frame it? This is a way to frame it. Let's just frame it right up front and say, which one would I use? You're probably doing manual stuff now. Most people are. Nothing wrong with that. Low asset investment, you can throw more people at it, certainly. The cons, labor, product damage, inventory accuracy. Inventory accuracy, you use software to fix that, right? So that's not really a big deal. Product damage, you're going to see it. You can't help it. I mean, you have people, you got human error. It happens. Quality labor, you're going to see a slide in a second to highlight what that means, and you guys are all probably experiencing this. ASRS, they're very fast. 100% accurate, works to 20 degrees F, so freezer applications, any freezer applications in here? You're the man. Back there too, perfect. ASRS is good for that, no product damage. Usually can't change aisles. That's true, there are some that do change aisles, but they're quite slow. High cost, absolutely. They are higher in cost, high value. Fast, high cost, high value. Requires input-output means, conveyor, certainly, or the vehicle that you see in the back with a lift lower deck, some sort of stand. AGV-based, the best of both worlds. Why? We don't have to throw people at it. We can throw AGVs at it. Let's just say you expand your system. You've got 13 rack aisles, 300-something foot long. Today, in 6 months to a year, this place is really expanding. Look, we're selling more stuff than we ever did. We have to have more inventory, more inventory. So you add 4 more rack aisles, 10 more rack aisles. Uh-oh, what do? Put more AGVs in. AGVs change rack aisles just like a regular VNA truck would. So you have the ability to not throw people at it. You can add AGVs to the system dynamically. You don't have to do anything fancy to be able to add AGVs to an AGV system. And of course, horizontal transportation. I'm trying to beat that out of you. Now we put it right back in. But of course, there are also very good to be able to use in a manufacturing and distribution environment, which means that we can go out, grab the load, and come back in and put it right in your warehouse. Again, ideal warehouse specs. The vehicle's designed for 35 feet. Load weight less than 2,200 pounds. It's kind of a misnomer. That vehicle, as you see it on the bottom, is called an HK75. Its load capacity is 7,500 pounds, but not at 35 feet. At 35 feet, it's only 2,200 pounds. So that's what we advertise. There's a D-rate curve somewhere in the 20-something feet range. It's 3,500 pounds. So hopefully that's pretty close to what everybody's using. Operate 2 or more shifts a day. Why is that important? Return on investment. Let's hit the low-hanging fruit. If you're operating 1 shift a day, you better be hauling butt and have a lot of forklift drivers, or else you're going to have a hard time justifying it. And at the end, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to return on investment for being able to do something like this. You got to prove it. Currently has more than 4 manual trucks. Absolutely, that makes sense. Existing rack structure. Of course, we're going into a manual warehouse. If you have existing rack structure, it's certainly less of an investment to come in and put these vehicles in. And increasing and expanding throughput. You're going to see, again, in the user profile, a profile of a company that decided to do this because they were increasing their throughput. And they were going from narrow aisles, 10-foot rack aisles, to a very narrow aisle. And it was the perfect way for them to, A, gain space. What are they not making anymore? Real estate, right? Certainly if you got a building and you can't expand it, why not make your rack aisle smaller? That's what this company did. And they found a way to increase throughput and increase density of storage by going to a different type of system, what you see here. Here we go. From the owner's perspective, you guys, I'm going to tell you a story. What I really like about presenting is not really presenting, but telling a story with what we're trying to do here. The story that I'm going to tell you here occurred about 5 years ago. I'm not going to tell you the company name, but they make fryers. So I went to visit him, and he was like, you know, we get fork truck operators in, and that was just about the time when there was the big OSHA push to make you had forklift training. Everybody know you got to bring forklift trainers in. It costs about $1,000 to train your whole crew, and then away they go. Well, they were having a hard time getting labor. They were also having a hard time keeping it, especially fork truck drivers. You know why? Because you would pay your fork truck trainer to come in and train your fork truck drivers, and then the guy down the street would offer your fork truck driver $0.25 more an hour. And guess where that guy's going to go? That's what happens. So not only do you need labor to do this, and the workforce is retiring, the pool is getting shallower and shallower. We need to look at not just getting low-hanging fruit, or you do, but getting a way to get away from repetitive tasks and labor force issues, and this is one way to do it.